Yeah, some changes on the new track too, as the new computer models came in this afternoon, and some of them have adjusted slightly to the north out day 4 and 5, and that would bring some changes to our area in South Florida. There's a storm there. It's about 1,400 miles away from the coastline of South Florida. It moved through Barbados, moving across St. Lucia and in the eastern Caribbean now. Warm water and low wind shear helping this continue to strengthen likely as it heads toward Puerto Rico next, and then eventually into the Bahamas. It is looking better organized at times on the satellite imagery. You can see the feathering off on almost all quadrants, indication that there's low wind shear here, and the warm water will continue to help strengthen it. The official forecast has a storm at 60 miles an hour. That is later tonight, and then into Wednesday, 2 p.m., just south of Puerto Rico, maybe a landfall in Puerto Rico as a tropical storm. Notice that this does not ever develop into a hurricane. The latest forecast track keeping it as a tropical storm, and then once it moves over the mountains of Hispaniola and into the Bahamas, it'll eventually have winds of 70 miles an hour. Now, this is a slight adjustment, but it has pushed a little farther north. Earlier today at 11 a.m., it was around Vero Beach for landfall. Keep in mind, there's large errors out 5 days, about 200 miles, and so we could see a storm well to the north in this area or well to the south down around Miami or even the Florida Keys, and we could see a stronger or a weaker system push in on the weekend. Computer model tracks, as I said, shifted a little bit east and a little bit north, at least most of them. They're tightly clustered models just to the north of Vero through Sunday and late Saturday and into Sunday. Now, here's the probability of tropical storm force winds, and these numbers have stayed steady. They dropped around Boca into West Palm. They were around 40% earlier. So we're looking at about 30 to 35%. This is the chance late Saturday through Sunday seeing 39-mile-an-hour winds or stronger across our viewing area, a little bit less around Okeechobee and Belgrade. And as you get into the Bahamas and closer to the down-the-line track, we're approaching 40 and 50% through the Grand Bahama and a little farther toward the north. Also, we still have Tropical Depression 6, which is expected to briefly become a tropical storm as it moves north, but no impact on South Florida. Now, a couple of critical times here tomorrow, late in the day and into Thursday, wind shear and those mountains of Hispaniola. Steve Villanueva is here with more on that.
Well, Steve, as these storms interact with the land, especially when they're weaker, they tend to kind of jog a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. But also there's a lot of mountains on Hispaniola, obviously lots of land, and these hurricanes need to be over the open waters in order to intensify. But once they start to interact with land and with the mountains, they tend to weaken. And now the official forecast calls for that. As it approaches Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, it'll be a strong tropical storm. But then once it moves over the land and comes out on the northern end, it'll be a weaker tropical storm with winds of 45 miles an hour. But let's look at the global computer models. This is the American GFS model. You can see that it does make its way across the islands and then through the Turks, through the Bahamas. And then this one, as we head into Sunday morning, it's making a run towards Brevard County and the Space Coast. And their European computer model, pretty much the same type of situation. It makes its way across the islands. It weakens a little bit around the Turks and Caicos, and then it starts to make a run towards the east coast of Florida. And notice both are very much in the same place right around the Space Coast. Still days away, so it could either go in this direction or in this direction, but for now, they're both concentrating on that area.